Hello, friends. I'm Major Mohammed Ali Shah, and today I'm very happy to bring on my YouTube channel a very special guest, someone who's a very dear friend and who's a great speaker, who's an entrepreneur, who's a politician. He's a writer. He is whatnot. We will discover more aspects of him. Slowly and gradually, they will unfold. And let me tell you, I've had the honor of being on the other side with him on his show, the Savio Show on NewsX. And now I have him to be on the other side, and I am this side. So great. And there's so much more. There's so much to Savio, but if I go on, he needs no introduction. You all have seen him, you all know him. But if I go on, I think the entire session I'll be speaking only about him. I don't want that to happen. So without wasting any further time, let's go straight to Savio. Savio, Jai Hind, and thank you very much for taking your time, brother.
Jai Hind, Major Shah, and thank you for having invited me on your show. I've always admired our conversations, and I look forward to a fantastic conversation with you.
Thank you, Savio. Thank you very much. Savio, let's begin with your journey from the beginning. How was Savio Rodrigues as a child? Was he always into academics, a very intellectual, serious, topper in class? First in academics, secondly in extracurriculars as well. Like how was he in elocution competitions? Why were you always taking part in plays, debates, declamation? I would like to know a bit about your childhood, Savio.
Major Shah, I was a very bratty youngster. I grew up in the Middle East, and I was very much with my books at the initial stages of my life, and I still am. I think the books have been my world, and I'm a voracious reader. If I'm in the cloakroom, for that matter, if I find a shampoo bottle, I'll read the contents of a shampoo bottle if I don't have anything else to read, and then I'll go back and figure out what were those contents all about and do a little bit of research. So I've been a voracious reader from a very young age. In a place like the Middle East, where you don't really go that much out to play as you would in India. India 30 odd years ago had great places to play, whether it was Goa, whether it was Mumbai. People would come out in the colonies. I'd see when we'd come here on holidays that they'd play, gully cricket and football in the rain and, all those things. But you didn't get that in so much in Dubai. Dubai, everything was all about your school and, whenever you were in school or you had extra classes or you had sports in school. So for me, books was something that I was always, drawn to, and I still am. I have a fantastic library. I read voraciously, and I think the books opened for me a very wonderful space of learning, and a learning that has helped me helped me hold myself in terms of conversations for a very long time. But I would say I was a very shy guy when it came to many other things, and elocution only came when I got into ninth standard. Prior to that, I was not much into elocution. I used to be into dancing and singing, and but debates and elocution I was very shy from. And it was only in the ninth standard when a friend of mine who was in my house who always participated in the elocution was not able to take part, and I had to take part instead of him because I was the reserve. Is when I spoke for the first time to an audience, and I came second. But it was me coming second that was considered to be more important to everybody in school at that time, including the teachers and vice principal and the principal, because they never saw me speak before. And I still remember the topic. It was conformity leads to lack of creativity, and I believed, and I took the stand that said conformity does not lead to lack of creativity. You need to conform to certain rules in society in order to stay within the framework of respecting human rights across the board. And the teachers were surprised, and it started my journey into conversations, and elocutions and debates. But I was still not very much, I wouldn't call myself a debater. A lot of that happened later when I came into India. But the Savio, if you would have met Savio prior to, say, the age of 16, Savio was never pro India. Savio always considered himself to be a foreigner. I do come from Goa, and some parts of my ancestral lineage does have a Portuguese connect to it. So Though my parents and my grandparents always brought us up as Indians, I fancied the fact that I would be a foreigner more than an Indian prior to the age of, when I was growing up, between the age of 8 and 9, right up till 16. But I remember once my grandfather at the age of 9, when I was in Bombay and I was showing off to my cousins and all that I'm a foreigner and you guys are Indians, that kind of a thing. He made me sit down and he told me, he said, it's all right that you think you are a foreigner right now, but someday in your life, Mother India will call you and you will come back and you will serve her, but you'll not know why you've done it, and there will be no reason to it. You will come back. Mother India will call you and you'll come. And at that point of time, I mocked it. Being the brat that I was, I mocked what my grandfather said. And then in 1999, towards the end of 1999, when there was a exodus of people from uh, Dubai to Canada. There was this phase around that time where people were moving from Dubai to Canada, and my family, my friends, a lot of my friends were also planning to go to Canada. I chose not to go to Canada. I chose to come back to India. And if you were to ask me why I took that decision, I really don't know. I just felt I needed to be back in India. What I was going to do, how am I going to do it? I knew nothing of that sort. I just took a leap of faith and decided that I don't want to grow up abroad. I don't want to continue to move like most Indians to other parts of the country. I believe my calling is to come back to India, and that's what I did. And ever since then, it's even then, Major Shah, I didn't have the patriotic stirring in me as I did when I met Mr. Parrikar for the first time. And I met Mr. Parrikar when I was a journalist with one of the most reputed newspapers out of Bombay, and I was in their business publication division. And I had come to Goa for a conference to report on hospitality and tourism, and he was the chief minister at that time. I had the opportunity to speak with him, and he was extremely, articulate and very clear in his points of view, and so was I. And I happened to mention to him that, Goa can transform itself. Goa can really become a global destination of value. And so he just told me one thing which stayed with me in 2002, which was it's easy for you, Savio, to talk because you live outside of Goa and you live most of your life outside of India. But if you really want to make a difference and you really want to contribute to Goa, then you should be in Goa rather than telling us what to do. I, of course, laughed it out because it's you would expect a political leader to say something like that, and I laughed it out. I said, in my head, I was not going to come to Goa. I like Goa as a holiday destination, and I was to meet him for lunch the following day, but he somehow he left a message with at the CM's residence that he had to go for a meeting, so he could not he could not do lunch. So I was quite annoyed by it because I traveled all the way from south to Tanjung to meet up with him, and I forgot about it. In 2010, when I decided to move to Goa, which was a conscious decision based on the fact that I saw great potential in Goa for the kind of work that I do, more importantly, because I believe I could create a good media brand and various other products and services out of Goa that could become global products. So when I decided to come to Goa and start my media company, I went to meet Mr. Parrikar to invite him. And I waited for about 10, 15 minutes, and then I was ushered into his opposition chamber. He was the opposition leader at that point of time. And he looked at me and he says, "Hi, Sam." And I looked at him and said, "You remember?" He says, "Yes." And then he says, "I'm sorry, I did not come for the lunch. I could not make it for the lunch appointment." And I looked at him and I was stunned. I said, "You remember the lunch appointment? That was the reason I was so upset with you because you didn't turn up." He says, "Yes, I'm sorry." And then he was like, "I'm sorry, we missed the lunch appointment." And he says, so then he started to converse. So a lot of the, you see, I come from a family where my grandparents, my parents were very pro India, even though the kind of lineage we come from. We were never taught to be nationalistic. to think otherwise, which was we were always taught to think as Indians. With Mr. Parrikar coming into my life, I was a journalist, he was the opposition leader, then he was the chief minister. The kind of exchanges that we had, the kind of uh, issues we spoke about, the kind of plans that we looked at, stirred in me the immense need for me as a citizen, then as a journalist, to work towards ensuring that I do my bit as far as nation building is concerned. And by nation building, I mean as a journalist, my job is to put out the truth as to the best that I can with the kind of information and documents and pictures that I have. And that's the kind of stand we have taken for War Chronicle for the last 12 years. It's been a very hard walk because in War Chronicle we don't make any money. We do a very lean organization and a very effective organization. And we don't charge advertisements. We've got great brand value nationally and internationally. And we didn't start it with a purpose to make it into a media house. We did it with the purpose that I think journalism could have been better. And the country needed better journalism because it is important to inform society of what the truth is and let society decide whether they accept the truth and make an informed decision. That's the most important thing today in society, where there's so much of influx of information. Some of it is true, some of it is untrue, some of it is blatantly false. It gets very difficult for society to decide what's right or wrong. And that's the time you have to put nation above everybody else, above your religion, above your political party, above your caste. Because in the end, our identity comes from us being Indian, and that's most important. So I came into prominence when, I was known in Goa locally when we exposed various different scams happening at a state level. And then we started doing stories at a national level. And one of the greatest stands that I took was to raise a question against certain church leaders who, who for their own biased attitude, or maybe because that's what they genuinely felt, were spreading this information or this propaganda that Christians are in danger. And I stood up and I said, as a Christian, I don't think I'm in danger in my motherland. This is my mother as well. So, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, whose intrinsically his roots or her roots are connected with Bharat Mata. They are children of this country, irrespective of their religion, and that's where I started to gain that prominence in what I would say the social space, the social media space, and it did make a lot of enemies within the community. But I think they've started to rationalize that this guy is always standing for the truth, which is why we raised the issue of Bishop Franco Mulaku or the rape against minors and nuns that happened because of some of these bad characters in the Catholic Church in part of the clergy. So I've always been somebody who will follow the ethos of my duty, my dharma, which is Prince Priest Sanatana Dharma, which is I am supposed to do my job irrespective of what the challenges are. So even being a part of a political party right now, people ask me on issues of corruption, on television channel. The political party has some people who could have been corrupt. What are your views? My view is the same. If the person is corrupt anywhere, if he belongs to my political party, he should be thrown in jail. It's as simple as that. Corruption is a cesspool, is a systemic cesspool, and as a journalist, as a citizen, I think it's very important for us to eradicate it. It's not going to be easy. I don't think you can ever eradicate corruption. I think you cannot eradicate corruption because the giver and the taker are equally responsible for corruption. So today, when a person wants to get a government job and he's willing to pay that kind of money to get a government job, because maybe he doesn't fit the merit list, or maybe he just believes that if he pays money to get a government job, he will get it. So the giver is as bad as the taker. And meritocracy is no longer something that we see in this country, and it should come back. It should come back. because it's only merit that defines how we're going to grow. So when you have people who don't have merit in high positions, or you've been given that because of certain criteria such as reservations, you will have mediocrity happening around, even in government systems and even in a corporate system for that matter. And we have, as a country, for a very long time lived with mediocrity. The chalta hai attitude is something that is so common to India, but that's changing. And young India is looking at progressing. Young India is about merit. Young India is about delivering on the promises that you make. Young India is about competing with a lot of global standards. And I think that's really what the future holds for us. So for me, as Savio who was this young boy who was averse to anything Indian, whose only understanding of India was through movies, which was Hindi movies and Bollywood at that time, when we used to get them in cassettes, VCRs that we used to see. I think India completely fascinates me. And I'm like somebody who believes that it's worth living for India. It's worth living in India. And if need be, it's worth dying for Bharat Mata. She's worth it. That's how I see it.
Absolutely, Savio, absolutely. Savio, during the discussion, you mentioned that Mr. Manoj Parrikar, he remembered every detail. So when I was hearing you, I could presume two things behind it. One, first, your personality is such that no one can miss you. Anyone would remember who Savio Rodrigues is. One small brief meeting is good enough. Second, all great leaders I've seen, they are very good with names, with events, in recollecting things. And I have found that you know the same quality you possess to be a great leader. One meeting I've seen with people, you remember them clearly. That's a very, very good quality. Now, Savio, also would like to know about today's journalism. How responsible is today's journalism? And there was a time when journalism was like really revered. Is it that revered profession today as it was earlier, or you see any shift, any difference in that, Savio?
Uh, okay, coming back to the idea of leadership, Mr. Shah. Uh, I don't aspire to be a leader. I'm not even aiming to be a leader. What I'm doing is I'm walking my path of what I think is the calling and the vocation that I have. Uh, I believe
Very well
if
said.
if people believe in what I stand for, uh, they should not see me as the end goal. They should see the objective behind what I'm driving. Because eventually I will go. I will there will come a time when I will no longer be in existence as far as this world is concerned. But the ideology that I want to espouse and the ideology I want to leave young India with is what I really want people to take forward. So it's not about Savio for me. It's not about Savio being a leader. It's about the thought process that I'm trying to inculcate in the larger section of people in this country. It was the same thought I received from Mr. Parrikar, right? It was the same thought I received from my grandfather and from my parents. So I am just channelizing the same learnings to a next set of people. So for me, it's not about leadership. For me, it's about being the voice of reason and the voice of channelizing young India towards what the future of India over the next 10, 20, 30 years is going to be. Because as a nation, as India, as Bharat, we're going to rise tremendously. And in order for us to rise tremendously, we must understand why is it important to rise above religious and caste differences. Last year when we had time, I was doing a course with one of the prestigious US universities on religion, conflict, and peace, and it was a 24-month online course. And I studied 50 different regions and the conflicts that they have. So I study a lot within the religion space because I'm also doing another course this year for 24 months on world religions through their scriptures. Okay, so I see conflict being brought about because of religion and caste in India right now. it's also political differences that are creating a lot of conflict in society. And I think you cannot ignore the fact that whether a person belongs to another religion or not, the intrinsic value of that person is that he's a human first, and that humanity seems to have been lost in this conflict. That's happening not only in India; it's happening all over the world, and we need to rise above that. So if I had a mission to which would be considered to be a global mission, then it's to stir the humanity in people to rise above religion and caste, to see the other person as more as human as you are, because that's the truth. Your religion, your caste, your place of birth, they are all incidental. The only fact that connects all of you is the fact that you are humans. So today Major Shah is in India, so he espouses the characteristics of an Indian. Maybe Major Shah would have been born in, say, America, and there is another Major Shah over there, but he's an American, but he's still a human. That's what connects all of us together. So we live life based on the baggages that are being put on us because of an identity crisis, which is I have to identify myself as a Christian, I have to identify myself as a Hindu, I have to identify myself as a Congress or a BJP or a TMC, I have to identify myself as a white or a black. You know, we put this identity crisis because in reality, if we strip ourselves of everything that we have, our clothes, our positions, our money, we live as nature is, naked. That's really what we are. Humans living a naked life, just like nature intended to be. There's nothing unusual about it, but that's what nature is, right? You see a dog walking, walking, or a lion walking, or any other animal. You see them wearing clothes, they're not. So the identity crisis is what humanity actually faces. The identity to accept that you are a human first is the crisis. And if I had, and my mission is that. So every stand that I take is, and people have said it to me while contesting the elections, even after the elections, you're not a politician, which is true. I'm not. I'm not a politician in the true sense of being a politician. I'm not there to show the people that we need to play political games and be like every other politician. I was not like every other journalist in the first place would go out political. So I'm not going to be like every other politician. For me, politics is about serving. It's about trying to use your intelligence and your expertise to try and uplift and empower a set of people that needs to be empowered, and to bring a certain order to your constituency or your state with your skill sets. Because eventually, who runs a government? Individuals run a government. Now, if you have a good set of people who are educated enough, who are intelligent enough, to formulate the right kind of policies for a state or for a constituency or even for the country, then the country is progressing. Otherwise, look at examples around the world. You can take a look at look at Arab or Pakistan, and you will understand that the policies that that country makes for itself is the leader like we have, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There's a vast difference. So it's important for intelligent people, professional people, to also be a part of politics, just like they are in the professional world, because they will bring a sense of order, there will be a sense of direction, and there will be most importantly, a sense of accountability. Because in the corporate world, you realize that there's a whole lot of accountability. In the political world, there's very little accountability for the mishaps that happen by a politician. So this syndrome over the last 75 years that we've carried with us, over a period of time, largely because politics was driven by religion and caste and reservations and XYZ appeasement. I think we need to evolve, because New India is not about that. New India is about everybody being fair and getting the right kind of opportunities to excel. So today, a guy who might be what many people consider to be of a low caste, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, everybody is getting the fair opportunities. Yes, there are rare cases of instances where you have caste clashes happening in India, but that's not the larger part of India, right? The larger part of India is educated, young, power at our disposal, and we are able to use that power that is there to take the country forward. And that's what you see with the armed forces, and you come from there. In the armed forces, there is no religion, there is no caste. It is just commitment to country, right? Commitment to the duty given to you. So if you are told that this is your job, that you have to go ahead and fight a war, you would work not thinking that, oh, what would be the outcome if I get shot with a bullet, and all those kind of things. You are committed. You know there is a chance of you coming out injured, but you go there because your mind has been focused and decided that this is your dharma, this is what you need to do, right? And that is what I want to take forward to the country, that beyond politics is not a bad word. Number one, you need good politicians, and educated people must get into politics. People who have an integrity in their value must get into politics. It's not going to be something that will change overnight, but over a period of time, I think we can get good politicians to change the future of this country, and Prime Minister Modi is just one example of that.
Absolutely, Savio. Savio, let's talk about your show on Musix. The Savio show. It's a very, very popular show. How did that come about?
Well, the Goa Chronicle show was a fantastic show on Newsex. I'm very grateful to the Newsex team, and we continue to share our wonderful relationships. However, ever since I joined the political sphere, what would become a concern is that the show, as which I find strange, because uh, as a journalist, that's my profession. You know, I've always maintained a balance, and I as when it comes to the country. So being a journalist, I would always maintain the balance. But the Goa Chronicle show had been put on hold for the reason that I got into politics. We are looking at doing it at shortly, but we'll take a different positioning of that in terms of more content driven, as I used to have more content in the show that had to have a lot of research, and that's really been our hallmark. Goa Chronicle, as a online news portal, has always been respected for our research and our investigation more than anything else. We are not into political news. We are not into. I couldn't care less if a politician inaugurated a particular place. You know, it doesn't matter. We don't write about our own products on Goa Chronicle, and people say you have a media house, you should use it to promote yourself. I don't promote myself on Goa Chronicle. My ethics don't allow me to do that. He said, I don't promote any other political leader. Why would I promote myself? Right.
Right, Savio.
So
I've
it's a.
had the
I
honor
come.
and privilege of being with you
What
on
was
that
it?
show.
Sorry.
How did it come about? Like, how did you conceptualize it, and how did this show start?
Um, Major Shah, the problem was there are a lot of shows on television at this point of time, and I believe what it lacked was intense research related information going out to people. So, like we did the show on how missing children and missing women and missing men. What is the kind of rates that have been happening year on year? On an average, every year, 6.5 lakh people in India go missing. The government has claims that it's been found 50% of the people, but 50% of the people are not being found. So if you're looking at an average of say 6 lakh people missing every year, that means 3 lakhs you don't know what happened to 3 lakh people. 3 lakh people missing is as much a number than the death due to COVID in this country, right?
How did
So
you
every
how did you come about the show? But how did you start the show?
it was a conversation that I had with Kartikeya Sharma, and he was a very good. He is a good follower of the Goa Chronicle articles, and he said, "Why don't you bring it into a show?" So I said, It's not going to be the noise that you see around, in most channels, some of which I'm a part of. And, uh, but it's going to be more intellectual in nature. So they won't get the kind of hits that you're looking at, the TRP. But he said, it's okay. Long as you have information like your articles too, if you can present that in that manner, it will find its own niche audience. So instead of having, say, 1 lakh people looking at you, you have 1,000 people of value looking at your show. You know, And that's how it conceptualized. So we looked at various different topics. We looked at the missing children. We looked at how Islam was indoctrinating children to hate. When I mean Islam, I'm talking about radical Islam. Uh, we looked at issues of Afghanistan and the Taliban. We looked at issues of complications in the world of religious conflict. How love jihad, the Christian community started to raise an issue about love jihad in Kerala. So varied topics, and it was getting phenomenal response from the intellectual set of people who wanted data, people who wanted an ability to see good news content rather, and investigative content. So we're getting a lot of positive feedback, and it also, it made me realize that I had a skill set to present, which I never thought I had. I was always on the other side, on the
That's being
television.
very modest. Of course, you have a brilliant skill set of to present, Savio. Brilliant.
Uh,
Savio,
yeah, well, I
one
realized that once I got in front of the camera. Uh,
I will tell
Normally
you another brilliant skill set of yours, which comes to my mind, which I have to throw the idea to you. That's my personal belief. I think you will make, the way you made a brilliant television presenter, I think you'll make a brilliant TEDx speaker, in fact. All right. So I just want to know, supposing you tomorrow you get an invitation that you have to speak on TEDx in a foreign country and a big, huge, not TEDx, TED event. I'm not even talking about TEDx, TED event. You speak on TED. How would that be? And I can visualize it. I'm sure it's going to be a grand success.
well, Mr. Shah, I would be humbled. Number one, uh, I would I would be, of course, excited to be a part of TEDx, and I would like to talk about what I think are issues that we need to do, as what we have done, as not only as an, it's not a political thing, it's more to do as an entrepreneur, and how we are revolutionizing the empowerment initiatives as far as India is concerned. We're starting with my constituency, and then we're going to take it to the rest of the country. We work in varied spaces. We work a lot in the cownomics space, number one. We're working in water management in terms of trying to see whether how do we deal with water and rejuvenation of our lakes. We're working in the robotics space. I have a team that works in that. So as a startup investor, I've invested closely in about seven revolutionary companies that will redefine certain aspects of what we are doing for the betterment of society. And I think we need to do that. My aim has been always, in the elections, for example, when I contested, I'll give you an example. On an average, people wanted 5,000 rupees to vote. Okay, on an average. Now, I remember telling one of these people who said, sir, if you, I have 60 people, and the cost is 5,000 into 60 people. I told that person, no, you can have 1,000 people with you, and I have the money to give you, but I will not give it to you simply because I will not buy a vote. I will not insult the values that my parents have given me. Right now, in order to curtail that, because I realize money is a prerequisite for people's liking of you. I said, why not change that into an opportunity to empower the very people without having to pay them to vote for me, and rather for them to work for themselves, right? So we've introduced two very innovative schemes in my constituency. One is the cow dung diya making concept, where there is a device that has been patented. We provide them with the cow dung, the herbal, and the technical know-how how to make the cow dung diyas. It's a potential $3 billion industry, you know,
Got it.
and
That's a brilliant
for
idea,
people.
Savio. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I would like to be more in conversation with you. I would like to know one lastly before we part ways. What is the message you would like to give to everyone from Savio Rodrigues before we end the conversation? Because you have been a brilliant television presenter, and this time I have you on the other side, and you've been a brilliant speaker. In fact, I was quite listening to you very attentively. And now we would like the world to know a message from Savio Rodrigues before we part ways? Because I'm sure your message would be listened by everybody.
If I had to give a message to the rest of the world, is don't be an observer, be a preserver. So preserve your humanity. Don't observe humanity being destroyed. Preserve your environment, your ecological surroundings. Don't just observe when it's getting destroyed. Preserve your nationalism, your nation. Don't watch while it's destroyed. So don't be an observer, be a preserver, is my message.
Wow, Savio, brilliant. Savio, it's been wonderful being in conversation with you, and thank you so much for taking your time. I truly
My
appreciate it.
pleasure.
You are
My pleasure.
brilliant, brother. You are absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you,
Bye.
Savio. Thank you. I'll end this broadcast. Thank you.